You wake up 10,000 years ago. Your cousin lives half a day upriver, and yesterday you walked the whole way to ask him one question, whether the hunt is happening at dawn, and he wasn't there. So you walked half a day back in the dark with no answer, having accomplished nothing except moving your own body across the landscape for 11 hours. You want to ask a question without going anywhere, and you want the answer in your hand before you finish wanting it. You start with shouting, because it's free. It carries to the far bank of the river and no further, and everything past the far bank still needs legs. You try shouting from higher ground, which buys you a little more river and a sore throat. So you sit down and work out what the thing in your hand would actually have to do. It has to reach anyone, anywhere, with nothing strung between you. It has to be small enough to carry, and it has to keep working all day, and it has to show you things. Your voice is the easy part, but you want whatever you ask for put in front of your eyes. Each one of those is its own mountain, and you have to climb all of them before you get to ask your cousin about the hunt. You can send a click down a copper wire, that part you can build, but a wire that follows you everywhere is just a very long leash, and a leash is what you're trying to escape. Then you notice something you can't immediately explain. When you make a fat spark jump across a gap on one side of your hut, a coil of wire sitting on the other side twitches, and nothing connects them. Nothing at all. You move the coil further away, and it still twitches. Weaker. You make the spark bigger, and the twitch comes back strong. Whatever the spark is throwing off is crossing open air, invisibly, and arriving. You, being the genius you are, don't even blink. A physicist proves this exact thing on purpose, with a spark gap and a loop of wire in a laboratory. Invisible waves are real. They travel. They can be caught. Heinrich Hertz, 1887. Within a decade, someone is pushing them across open water, and a few years after that, across an ocean. Your first working version has a problem you didn't anticipate. The moment two people transmit at once, everything turns to mush. You fix it by giving every conversation its own frequency, so a receiver can be tuned to listen for one and ignore the rest. The same reason two people can talk in the same room at different pitches without either becoming unintelligible. The next problem is worse, and for a long time it looks like the answer rather than the obstacle. You build one enormous transmitter on the highest hill, powerful enough to cover everything for 100 miles in every direction, and it works beautifully for about 6 people. There are only so many frequencies to divide up, and one giant tower means everyone in that whole 100-mile circle is drawing from the same small pile. This is not a hypothetical failure. The early real-world version of car telephones ran exactly this way, and an entire city would have something like a dozen conversations available at any one moment, with a waiting list years deep just to be allowed to own one. A phone that only works as long as almost nobody else owns one is closer to an expensive hobby than a way of reaching people. You also keep walking out of range and losing the voice mid-sentence, which no amount of tower height fixes. The fix runs the exact opposite direction from the one you were pushing. Instead of one tower shouting louder, a lot of small, quiet towers, each covering only its own patch of ground, reusing the same frequencies over and over as long as their patches don't touch. Weaker transmitters, more of them, and suddenly the same handful of frequencies serves a whole region instead of a dozen people. And as you walk from one patch to the next, something has to hand your conversation across the boundary, mid-word, without you noticing it happened. That handoff is the entire idea, and it's the reason the thing eventually gets called a cell phone. The first call from a handheld one gets made on a street in New York in 1973 by Martin Cooper, who used the first mobile phone call in human history to ring a rival engineer at a competing company and gloat about it. Now for making it small. Your switches are the size of your fist, run hot and burn out constantly, and you need millions of them. Vacuum tube switches get you working machines that fill a room and cook everyone standing in it. What actually breaks the problem open is a sliver of treated silicon that does the same on-off job, cold, tiny, and without burning out. The transistor, Bell Labs, 1947. Even that isn't enough. 1,000,000 individual transistors means 1,000,000 tiny wires soldered by hand, and one bad joint anywhere kills the whole thing. So you stop building them one at a time. Instead, you coat a wafer in something light-sensitive, shine a pattern through a mask, and etch every component and every connection between them into the surface at once, printing the machine with light, the same trick you'd use to make a photograph, aimed at a different purpose. You, being the genius you are, don't even blink. 2 people land on this within months of each other, Jack Kilby and Robert Noyce, 1958 and 1959, and every chip made since is a descendant of it. Power is its own wall. Your stack of metal discs and brine works, and it's heavy, and when it dies, it's dead. You need something dense enough to disappear into a pocket, and refillable, so you're not rebuilding it every evening. That means the lightest metal that it will hold the job and give up its electrons willingly, packed close enough to run a machine all day, and packed that close, it will happily catch fire if you're careless, which is a tension nobody ever fully resolves, only manages. The rechargeable lithium version reaches ordinary people in 1991. The screen has to do two jobs at once, show you anything and be told things. Buttons fail immediately. Every new thing you want to do needs another button, and you run out of surface. The answer is glass that can feel you. Your body carries its own faint electrical charge, so a fingertip touching the surface changes something measurable at exactly that spot, which is why your finger works and a stick doesn't. The capacitive touchscreen gets built in 1965 by E.A. Johnson at a radar research establishment for air traffic controllers, and since the whole point is carrying it, the glass has to survive being dropped, which means swapping ions at its surface to leave the outside permanently squeezed and hard to crack. There's one more piece, and it isn't a physical object at all. Your printed sliver of silicon can do a staggering number of things, and it has no idea which of them to do. Building a separate machine for every task would mean a separate machine for every task forever. What you need instead is a machine that holds its instructions the same way it holds anything else, so you can hand it a new set of instructions and have it become a different tool by the afternoon without touching the machine itself. Everything anyone will ever do with the thing in your pocket rides on that one idea. The last piece is that it needs somewhere to call. Your cousin is the small version of the problem. You want the thing to reach everything, which means the whole addressed packet chopping network already has to exist and be running before your slab of glass is any use at all. You put it together. Waves through open air, towers handing you along as you walk, a machine printed with light, a battery that lasts the day, and a piece of glass that knows where your finger is. It fits in your palm. You ask it whether the hunt is happening at dawn, and it tells you, and you have not moved. Now watch what everyone actually does with it. The chief works out within about a day that he can simply ask where anyone is and get a truthful answer, and he begins doing this constantly, at all hours, to people who are demonstrably asleep. Nobody can claim to have been elsewhere anymore, which ends several long-running village mysteries and starts about 9 new arguments. The fire circle goes quiet for the first time in the history of the species. People still come and sit around it every evening out of habit. Nobody looks up. The storyteller, who held that job for 30 years and inherited it from his mother, finishes his best story to a ring of people staring downward into their own hands, and something in his face changes permanently. Grack sends a message about a borrowed axe. The recipient reads it, does not respond, and later claims to have never seen it, except the thing plainly shows that it was seen, at a specific moment, by a specific person, who then chose to say nothing. This is a new category of insult that the village has no existing word for, and by the end of the month they've invented one. An elder refuses to accept that distance no longer requires volume. Speaking to someone on the next hill, he uses an ordinary voice. Speaking to someone 4 valleys over, he bellows into his hand loud enough to be heard 4 valleys over unaided, which defeats the entire purpose, but feels, to him, like the only honest way to do it. He is not persuadable on this. Every meal in one particular hut now gets recorded, before anyone is permitted to touch it. The man responsible shows the results to people who did not ask, describing what was in each one, and grows visibly wounded when the response is insufficient. He has an audience of 4, and treats them like a nation. 11 days' walk from here, in a village nobody in this one has ever visited, there is a marriage dispute. It is being followed until dawn, nightly, by a woman who has never met a single person involved, and holds furious opinions about all of them. She is functionally useless the following day, and unshakable about doing it again that night. A young man slips coming down the riverbank, lands badly in the shallows, and stands up to discover 3 people were already pointing their glass at him. Before he has finished wringing out his tunic, it has reached the far side of the valley. By evening, people in settlements he has never visited know him exclusively as the one who fell in the river, and they will know him that way for the rest of his life. He is otherwise an excellent hunter. It will not come up. Grack, meanwhile, has ended up in charge of the one stone where the things get charged, which was nobody's plan, and has made him the most powerful person in the settlement by a wide margin. He decides the order. He denies requests. 2 men who have not spoken in years are now extremely warm toward Grack specifically. And so every evening, the whole village sits in a tight circle, shoulder to shoulder, silent, gathered around the charging stone, having rebuilt the fire circle exactly, out of the one thing that destroyed it. Subscribe, and next time, leave it at home. You won't, but next time,